So we're doing this live. Um, is it Louise or is it Louis or Louis?
It's Lewis.
Okay,
It's
Louis.
Lewis.
Okay. In Portugal, it's Luis.
Oh, very nice.
We're fancy. We're fancy. You guys probably know him. Actually, introduce yourself, Louis, just so like everybody gets to know who you are.
Of course. I'm Lewis. Instagram handle name. You might see me whatnot under Public Kingdom. That is. Uh, More than anything, I'm more of a collector versus what you would say buyer seller. That is, but when you have so many cards, you have to sometimes be a buyer and sometimes you have to be a seller. That is, but I do a lot of collecting. That is. Um, but yeah. Background. Been collecting for about 30 years. Been collecting since '94. A lot of the upper deck stuff, and of course, recently, a lot of my big pickups as of lately have been out of booster packs. That is, believe it or not. But um, going into the show next week, of course, I'm a vendor there, but also I'll be looking at buying and selling at the same time. But yeah.
Cool, man. That's good background. There, 30 years. Huh? That's a long time. What got you to the hobby initially?
I mean, since I was young, I've been playing soccer. Uh, what really got me into it is 92, 93. Just hearing about the World Cup, my dad being excited. We're out of Washington, D.C. area. So they had a lot of the games in 94 at the World Cup. Unfortunately, I didn't realize how big it was, see teams like Belgium, Italy, even Portugal, playing the World Cup until I would say last 15, 20 years, I realized that, what was I thinking, But when you're a kid, you go to the stadium, you enjoy it, you have a lot of people from different demographics, and, you look back, you're like, and see where it's at today, where, soccer, it's booming, hopefully it booms even more in the States, but, more anything, for the last 30 years, I've just been collecting a lot of soccer cards, a lot of memorabilia. I actually paid for my wife's engagement ring by, selling memorabilia, that is. So, soccer's always been part of me. My wife's been able to understand it a little bit more. She actually bought me this shirt, She's a big Suarez fan. It's more than anything, it's about uh, part of, my life, but then again, you still have that 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job. But once it's 5 o'clock, you're looking at your collection. I can talk about more of what I usually do with my collection. I like to create it. I like to consider it being more art wise than anything, because of how long and how many pieces I have from the last 30 years. That is so. Yeah.
Now, now you're a vendor at the show coming up next weekend. The All Soccer. For those that don't know, the All Soccer Cards show and collectibles show coming up next Friday and Saturday, 2 days over Easter weekend. Friday and Saturday, guys, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think Friday, and then I think it's 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. if I'm correct,
Yep.
if I can remember that correctly on Saturday. So it should be a great 2 days. I know last time I got to meet you last time. We had a really good time at that show. A lot of people really enjoyed themselves. We thought the energy was great. I think we all kind of felt that way. And the hobbies kind of, particularly the soccer hobby, right? Since that show, we've seen exponential growth in not only card values, the volume of sales. Um, and that could be attributed to a few things. Obviously, the World Cup's coming up, kind of a big deal. The other part of it is, there's more people coming into it. Have you been doing other shows too locally? Where are you out of again? Are you out of Jersey or are you out of you're down south further, right?
Washington D.C.
Oh yeah, that's right. DC,
Yeah.
you said that.
I do a lot of shows in Maryland, and Virginia. This weekend, I might actually go to Winchester, Virginia, to actually check out a show over there. There's some soccer dealers over there that are not going to the show in Jersey, but yeah, there's I'd say definitely it's picking up. I know that in the last 30 years, I've built up a lot of relationships with a lot of the people, either diplomats from the government, et cetera, wise. So if I do take anything on my PC, it's more of selling to those particular clients or friends, etc. Wise I've built in the last 30 years. But yeah, it definitely has picked up since the last show. There's been a lot more talk. I've been passing out the flyers. That is, there's. I would say that hopefully, I'm giving estimates. Hopefully, there's a couple of thousand that come to the show within the next 2 days. That Friday, Saturday. Because I know that I've been doing my part. So, a collector. And trying to get more of people coming up that I-95 for either that Friday or Saturday or both days. So yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm excited for it. I know one of the things for me was kind of getting to meet people like you and a few others that I'd never met before. And just the energy people bring to a show like that is really phenomenal. Now, you're more, I would say, I don't do a lot of shows. Um, for me, something like this I can't pass up though because I like to be there. What are some of the things? I know we probably have some first time vendors coming in. What are some of the things that you do to prepare for a show? Give me kind of like a framework, or because I could actually use it too because I'm not very good at that. I show up with a few boxes, a display case, and that's all I do. And then people rummage through the value box, whatever you want to call it, or the boxes with the top loaders, and they pick out things they like, and I give them a price. And I don't really comp those things. I'm kind of just like, $4, $3. I do that type of stuff. And I have actually an exciting announcement to make tonight. We're gonna debut it here with you, which is I think is very exciting. We haven't kind of narrowed down the rules on this contest, but we are going to be doing. You saw the giveaway that Paulo had announced with the Messi rookie, the Ronaldo rookie, the packs, the Holland rookie, and the Mbappe. There's going to be a pack of each that's
Yeah.
going to be awarded, and we're going to get a fifth thing. It might be a Lamine Yamal rookie pack where you can possibly pull a Lamine Yamal rookie. But I'm going to go over that contest after we kind of hear your framework
Wow.
in terms of how we're not going to do the randomization anymore for this. I came up with a really good idea and Paulo liked it. So I think we're going to do with this idea and I'm going to announce it shortly, which we have to kind of still structure some framework, but I think vendors are going to like this idea. Um, but give us kind of an idea or like your framework in terms of how you prepare for a show, what you do for a show in terms of getting ready for the show.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I would say number one thing is when ending, one show, it's about making sure within 48, 72 hours, making sure that I carry a container with all my supplies. Want to make sure that I keep everything fresh from the Windex, for extra per towels. I want to also make sure that my cards, are facing the right direction. That is, especially with the value boxes. I usually start off with if I have a previous show that I had like $1 box, I drop it down for next show to be like 50 cents. Why? Because I'm always buying and selling cards, and sometimes I end up buying cases. So when you're buying cases, you're I've got to that point, and I'm never going to tell anyone start at buying cases. That is, but I've got to that point where I've done a lot of cycling of things, especially with cards wise, where you have to keep a flow, especially if you're doing one or two shows every month. That is, but I would definitely say that in regards to cards that you plan to have in your cases. You definitely want to make sure that you have them organized, keep them in great condition, because that next show, you never know who's going to want a particular refractor, or sometimes a base card, or sometimes, you know, you might find, in the next show, which you'll probably see, a kaboom. But I know that with those type of things, I want to make sure that I have them strategically placed. Like this coming show, I know that um, I'm having Portuguese cards. I'm having a couple of Lamine cards coming in, which um, I usually don't do too many Lamine cards, but I know that with that impact coming in with the World Cup, the more likelihood it's about to, be part of that, Spain national team that is. I definitely have to put that into that mix that is. Also, what I do have is um, I bring out either cards out of my PC that were I've been saving. Give you example like a Kevin Sullivan, which I consider to being a prospect. He might not be playing the World Cup, but there's still tournaments going around that World Cup. Either even like summer tournaments. I know that in the upcoming, uh, years, you might have Olympic tournaments coming up. So you still have people looking at not only the World Cup but also other particular tournaments coming up. That is. So yes, it is a mix of cards that I'm bringing in from the PC. There is cards that I'm bringing in for that are prospects that I've actually pulled from boosters. That is, I'm bringing in cards that actually came in about a couple weeks ago from PSA. So it's a mix, and there's also cards I've been holding for like 6 months. Give you an example, like a Pulisic um, on card auto from 2019. That is, I've been
Mm,
holding that. I had a couple Polisics, the last couple years in my collection, but you get to that point, it's way too many, that is. And I know that I've been looking at the market on card autos, that is, on particular players and what has been selling, what hasn't been selling, but also looking at how those prices are either going up or down, especially with prices going down at certain cards. And it's not because of that players doing bad at all. It's just the quantity of those particular uh, player autos that might be out there. There's so many out there. It's even give you example like the Pulisic. His autograph has changed from last year to this year. So I know that's a particular market where someone might be looking for that particular autograph, but also on card that is. So small little things I look at, but also it's the conversations of when you're actually watching the soccer and seeing what people are pointing out, on certain players. Even like today, I had a conversation with someone that actually is also a vendor coming in first time. His name is YZA Soccer. He's all about Bayern Munich. We were talking about and how he's progressed over time from the different teams that is. So it's really comes down to not only what's going on in the market, but also what's in conversation that is. Um, so it's definitely it's fascinating. Like the last 2 days I heard about, of course, the Portugal player Paulino. And I'm like, does he have any cards out? Because I think you've mentioned in the past that particular player, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, definitely that's something that I might be looking at, going into the show to buying if there's a Polino card or not. So yeah, I mean, those small little things. Prep wise, it's about making sure you stay organized, making sure that cards are organized, making sure that your cases are as pristine as possible. If not, maybe looking at investing on a smaller case to put right beside maybe a case that's needs a little more cleaning that is. So, but also it's being familiar with the people around you that are actually vending around you because they might have cards that you can recommend to others if they don't see in your case. So it's very friendly, these particular shows. I know I went, of course, to that show at the end of last year, and it's fantastic. It's definitely worth going up to then, but also to actually meet the people you've actually seen online, but also create that rapport with others that have common um, familiarization with the cards that you're talking about. Give you example. Last card that that I purchased at the show was this particular Michael Jordan from you.
Oh
I
yeah,
actually went
yeah,
to get
yeah.
it graded. This is something I'm keeping forever. Not worried about the grade at all. But this is something that I was actually chasing for quite a while. The card I previously had was this one, the Michael. I wanted that gold, so that's something that I'm very happy to have that staying in my PC. Um, and I've seen that conversations you've had on your podcast about that Jordan card. And I'm definitely looking forward. If I can find another one, I'll be picking it up. Hopefully reasonable price.
Yeah,
But
those values have gone up quite a bit.
you got it. You got it. You
We
got
kind of
it.
knew that was going to happen though. We knew that was going to happen though at that point, you know.
Uh-huh.
You brought up Paulinho, right? Paulinho is the Ronaldo's hurt, so we had a few other Portuguese players get hurt recently. I think Rafael Leão, as well as Rodrigo Moura from the Porto young kid, the wonder kid there. Um, Paulinho's an interesting player. Um, from Sporting. He's been I believe he's actually been the leading goal scorer in the Mexican League the last 2 seasons. So he is a very I think he's a very good guy to have for Portugal. I'm not trying to talk about Portugal here, but that guy's he's a good striker to have, a good kind of a third striker. I mean, know, I, I don't think Gonzalo Ramos is really a pure striker. He's more of a center forward. He's not a box killer, but having the ability to have Paulinho there, and then they're playing Mexico in an exhibition this weekend, which Paulinho is adored by many of the fans down there. So it's kind of nice that he's going to be there. I know the fans are disappointed because they want to see Ronaldo play, but it is what it is. Maybe they'll get their chance eventually, but um,
Yeah.
maybe the Simpsons. They had the prediction a few years ago was Mexico Portugal in the finals and Portugal wins. So who knows? Um, it's these shows. I really like kind of what Paul Lewis started here, hooked on soccer cards, and Anthony's sack cards, and I work with them on kind of promoting the show. And I like what Paul Lewis started here. Right, he's kind of started something very small that turned into something very niche. And sometimes, I mean, I get a little bit frustrated too because I don't have the podcast views that others have. I don't have the views on Instagram that others have. And it's primarily because, and I think I've realized is that it's such a niche area, and we're still so small as compared to the other sports. So it's kind of one of those things we all got to continue to work hard, and we know that some of this is to make money. Obviously, we have to make money to sustain ourselves. Even if you're collecting a particular player, you have to sustain yourself and sell things to do that. So that becomes kind of, that's the challenge, obviously, is growing it. And one of the things I do see is kind of not enough people are talking about this, or no one's talking about this. So I'm going to talk about it now a little bit. Um, the anticipation for the World Cup and um, all the, let's say, all the excitement, all the card prices going up, all of this stuff is great, right? But what happens after the World Cup? If Lamine Yamal does not win the World Cup, I told somebody we probably see a 30 to 40% decline in his pricing. I really believe that. And that goes for probably anybody else. I mean, Ronaldo and Messi have kind of cemented their legacies. I know with Ronaldo, if he wins the World Cup, it certainly helps him. I don't think, although the pricing of his cards has gone up quite a bit, I do see that if he did win the World Cup, I think we'd see a bigger push, probably past Messi at that point. That would be safe to say, because I think at that point, I think the argument then, and not because I'm biased, but I think the argument then is kind of the debate's kind of over and who's the best of this generation. It's Ronaldo with the Champions League titles backing him up. You know what I mean? So it's becomes one of those
Yeah.
things. But that's the least of our concerns. It's more of a, well, what happens after this World Cup? Well, you have a lot of people that bought Mbappe. I'm a guy that thinks France probably wins it all. They have the team to do it. Obviously, I want Portugal, the U.S. to win, but what do you think? I'm kind of for me, the challenge is the new people coming in, right? Because we've been through this. You've been in the hobby 30 years. You said um, the shifts of roller coaster up and down. Act. This hobby reacts just like an economy does. Same thing. It's a roller coaster, up, down, inflation, you know, depression, uh, all of that stuff. How do we protect those consumers, um, or the people that are coming in as collectors? And for me and you, I know I can tell that you, in talking to you the last time, we buy the stuff we like, so it really doesn't affect us as much. But if we're buying a big card to resell, it could affect us in a way that we don't want it to affect us. How do we protect those people? I think part of it's the education aspect. The last World Cup, everybody, all the influencers, all the people were out there talking about, oh, there's going to be a huge, huge bump for the World Cup, and we didn't see that. That didn't happen. We saw, Gonzalo Ramos score a hat trick, and we saw his cards balloon go crazy. We saw Messi win the World Cup; his cards went up. Um, my concern is, how do we protect people coming into the hobby, into soccer now, and they're buying things, and I don't know what the answer is to that. How we protect those people and keep them in if they get disgruntled like that. I mean, I've always said buy what you like, but we all know that some people are in this to make money. That's part of the hobby. Where it's no longer a hobby for certain people. You know what I mean? So, I mean, what do you think is kind of, education goes so far? We can certainly tell people you shouldn't do breaks because, you know, I mean, I don't want to prevent people from doing breaks, but breaks are cool, and that's a whole different discussion. You got the whole whatnot thing
Yeah,
going on, and I know people talk about that constantly lately. That's usually, you know, the and that's the other part is kind of a lot of negativity is what fuels this hobby. People love negative and they love chaos. Um, I don't really like that stuff. I prefer to be as positive as I can be, and look for things where people are
yeah.
kind of, not looking at things and both from a collecting side and an investing side and saying, okay, this makes sense. Um, I guess it's kind of a very vague question for you, but what do we need to do to protect and keep collectors in the in the space, and investors for that matter, that are new to this, because it's not easy either. It can be difficult. You have some kids might show up at your table and they may say, hey, you got any golds of tens, or golds of 25 of a certain player. um and then you're kind of like, no, I have an of 99, and they don't want it because it's of 99. But how do we educate people and let them know that, listen, just because if it's not 99 doesn't mean it's worthless, because we all see what stuff does from, previous years. Everything goes up eventually. That's how it goes. So how do we
Yeah.
keep people in the hobby? Is kind of my question, I guess.
So, I mean, it's something that every few weeks I think about myself. You have the quick flippers, especially the ones that actually, look for, the limited SSPs, the numbered cards, So, with that, and if you're looking at short term wise, that might work. There's that, investment part of that, I know for me and you, we both look at what we like, what we can connect with. What I like to explain when someone's asking, what's a good investment, when I come, to my table, I explain to them, one, you have to look at, how long, this player has been professional. Number two, you have to look at the long term of, how, that particular card or that player will connect with the person, or if there's any connection at all, or any upcoming tournaments. My main thing is I explained that not only is the World Cup coming to the States, this year, there's a great chance of be coming back in about 12 to 16 years. Just looking at, what FIFA, does
Mhm.
with regards to continent wise, and, how it actually would come back. I know, of course, with the last World Cup being 94, it's what, over 30 years, let's say, that, is coming back into the States. So when choosing cards wise and looking at, of course, um the three factors, if you're looking at, quickly sell, or quickly buy a particular card just because of the moment. Because I'll give you an example, like Lamine, you know he has all the potential. to be, great. But to be, the GOAT, which I still, categorize that to be, the Messi, the Ronaldos, the Pele, and that's a different story in regards to Pele, if he was playing, with, I've had people tell me he's the best, but winning all those World Cups, he's playing with farmers, that type of thing. And I'm like, well, what was there different, during that time period? So, Pele, give you example. If you get a nice card Pele, or even pronounce, let me know if I'm pronouncing this gentleman's name, Esubo,
You
Eusebio,
you Eusebio.
Eusebio.
Yeah, there you go.
It was actually sack cards got me into that particular World Cup card that's red, in that
2014
particular
Prism.
player. So you got it. You got it. So, I mean, I started collecting that particular card because, he mentioned that there was some history on it. So for me, I started looking at going to YouTube, looking at how this player played, how he had, that unique movement on the field, that is. So I connect with that. So low key, I do collect that particular player, that particular card, that is. Um, but that's something that I dabble when I buy it for my PC. I'm like, okay, I got too many. I'll put it out there. So it's
You know,
about just being.
what's funny is if my dad was on this podcast right now, he would tell you he's the best
Yeah,
Portuguese player ever. That's what he would tell you. He'd say he's the best Portuguese player ever he saw play. It's not Ronaldo, it's Eusebio. But it's one of those
yeah,
things. We all have our people that we grow up on and watch, and we have an affection towards that. But like you said, you made the connection because of that card, the player. You watched him a little bit, and you understood the importance he has. He's on many top 10 lists of all time, as one of the greats ever. And that's a good point too. You bring up a valid point of educating the youth, on some of the greats. And I always talk about this. I know people are probably sick and tired of me hearing this from me, but we are so early in this right now that I don't think we have this hobby does not have a um I don't want to say the memory. It doesn't have the kind of the nostalgia that the other sports have in terms of baseball. You look at baseball, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron. Uh, we know who those players are in our kind of collecting journey, but we also don't under the younger folks or the younger people don't know who those players are. And I think it's,
yeah,
for me, it becomes kind of, and I haven't done a special people podcast in a while, but it's a quick reel that I do on Instagram. But I think it's important for us to kind of educate people like you collect Eusebiu now. So I think it's important that you educate the young kids that come over and say, "Hey, what is that Eusebiu card you got there in your case?" You know what I mean? Or the Eusebiu Prism. If you have a bunch of them, you have them on your case. It's important to educate people so they understand. It's not only a kid coming up to a table and saying, you have any Lamine Yamals? And for example, I have one right now. I have one, and I actually opened a box of those Monopoly World Cup Prism just to check it out.
hmm
And because Target had a little sale on those, I opened one and I pulled a Lamine. I don't even know what the name of the parallel is. It might be one of those short print ones. I think it's like a $60 card on eBay, but
hmm
whatever the case may be, I'll have one at the show, I guess, like, to sell to people if they want it. But I think it becomes important that we connect the history of the game with the current kind of um, phase of the game where it's at and the collectors, right? I mean, we look at Bruno Fernandez as a guy that for a long time, I've always thought again, people will say I'm biased 'cause I'm Portuguese. I get it. But he's just a player that is wonderful. He's probably the best midfielder in the world at the moment right now. I mean, arguably Portugal probably has the best midfield in the world right now with him, Vitinha, and João Neves all together. If hopefully Neves is I know he's a little banged up right now, but he'll be fine. Um, but Bruno Fernandes is a guy in the hobby that was always overshadowed in England primarily. He's probably going to be the EPL Player of the Year this year. Um, but it
yeah,
was always overshadowed by De Bruyne and some others in that league. And now he's always had the numbers, but he's played on some terrible teams. And you have to wonder on a player like that, the what if factor comes in as to what if he had played on those De Bruyne teams at Man City, when they won all those titles? What would his numbers be like at that point? So it's things like that where you kind of sometimes you got to find certain players that you can kind of you know, attach yourself to. I know one of the guys I do really appreciate a lot. I don't collect them, but when I get a chance and if I see something nice of his, I do buy it. Victor Osimhen, he's playing at Galatasaray,
Oh yeah,
but I love that guy, and I hope he comes to a bigger team. But people aren't looking for him. They're not going to walk into this show and be, "Hey, you have any Victor Osimhen?" No, they're going to look for Lamine Yamal, Ronaldo, Holland, obviously at the World Cup, Mbappe. They're going to look for the guys that are going to impact at the World Cup. But if I know I always like when there's younger collectors, and if like I think on Instagram. I can't forget his name. Competitive Soccer, I think. They're Porto fans. I'm a Benfica fan, so when he came over to the table with his kid at that first show, I gave him some Porto cards for nothing, and there were some good cards in there. $5, $10 cards. I gave them to him for nothing because it's important to kind of give back when you can. I think it's important to do that. It's not always about the money, right? Granted, we go to a show, and we want to make money to make it worth it. Like for me, it's kind of I want to make a money to cover the hotel, to cover my meals. I know that's probably not going to happen. Maybe it will, but um, I don't generally probably sell as much as you do or the other vendors. I mean, I think at the last show I made $1,000, which is probably tiny peanuts compared to everybody else. Um, but I was happy with what I did because I got to experience the camaraderie in the hobby. Um, I always say this: the other kind of sports in our hobby and the hobby as a whole, baseball, basketball, football. Um, the flippers are more engaged there, but I think the flippers are coming into our sport because of the World Cup stuff, where they see opportunity, right? So we kind of got to be careful a little bit. Like I sometimes I won't sell certain things to certain people. I just don't do it. Um, and then I look at us. I still think hockey has a better collector base. What I mean by collectors, I mean
yeah,
by people that actually hold their cards. Um, and like I haven't really sold anything in months. I think I've sold a few cards here and there, but on Instagram, but I haven't really sold like my boxes with my top loaders. I haven't even looked through those boxes in months. So I know there's going to be stuff in there that people might want, you know what I mean? And the other aspect here
yeah,
is now here comes the other challenge for you, and this might be a good question for you too is with the PSA kind of shutdown right now. We know that well, it's not a shutdown, but they're delay. Like I sent cards to them at the end of middle of November, and they're
yeah.
they're only they're only at research and ID right now, which is crazy. Um, do we see at this show? Do we see kind of an uptick in the raw pricing? Um, like I guess my point is I think we probably see an elevated pricing on raw cards, especially when you're at a show. You can examine the card and see, yeah, this is probably going to 10 or it's going to 9. Um, I feel like we're going to see that. I feel like we are at a point now where people are going to be scrambling. They know they're not going to, if they grade cards right now, they're not getting them back in time for the World Cup. So either one, you have to find alternative graders, which if you do that, you do realize that number one, you're going to get a lower premium than the PSA premium. Is it worth it? Probably not. Or number two, you sell raw and you sell at a. I mean, I'm a guy that always says buy the card if you believe in it. You know what I mean? So if somebody's going to charge an extra $10 on a card in the last comp, if I believe in the card, I'm buying it. You know what I mean? Comps to me are kind of I don't know. Comps are weird. Um, then maybe you can talk a little bit more about the comp kind of strategy you have when you're selling. If you have, do you create a spreadsheet? Do you kind of keep an idea on what you've bought, what you paid for it, to try to get that? We understand that at times the market's so volatile that prices do change quite frequently because of comps, because people are so dependent on comps. Um, it's kind of like my Nev's immaculate of 3 gold. That's a 10 card. It's a 10 auto. At that show in September, somebody offered me 2,500 cash
Yeah,
raw at that
yeah.
point, and I said no. And the guy who's I didn't get his name. It was a high end collector. And he looked at me and said, "You're pretty smart." I said, "Yeah, I think I am. I think it's a 10. It's gonna 10," and it did 10. Um, he made the comment that you're pretty smart. That's probably a 6,000 to $7,500 card. If it tens and you get the double 10. So I have it. I might actually put it out at the show to see if anybody bites, but I probably don't want to sell it. I've sold some of his other stuff already, but because I paid like $300 for that card. I really got a really good deal on that. That was before the
Hmm.
hype, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the strategy now, I think, because I'm not gonna have a lot of stuff, but I'm wondering what your strategy is on that raw stuff now. I mean, I think there's gonna be an uptick in demand. I could be wrong, but I really think people are gonna be looking for raw cards.
Yeah, definitely. I would say they're definitely looking at raw cards for this. I mean, like I said before, there's three categories. The ones that try to do the quick flip, that is, and also that's more the mixture of them looking at comps wise, and that's another thing. Comps are normally you actually do see on online sales, websites, etc. When you go to an actual card show itself, I can understand there's a certain percentage of people that are looking at following the comps, that is, but in reality wise, I use that as a type of rule that okay, I'm gonna look at that, but then again, I have to follow my heart. If I see a car that's you know let's say hypothetically speaking, when I price a card, because I'm one of those people, I'll put a price on the card, take it or leave it. If they bring me a comp off their phone, I'll take a look at it. Gives me an idea, and I'm like, is this the only car you're looking at purchasing? The thing is that I'm more lenient to give something that's less in price, under comps, give them a deal if they're buying of quantity wise. um if they buy like three cards, definitely look at percentages and all that. If it's one card, I really have to look at one, is it a low price, more of a SSP card? Is it low numbered card? Is it one that is highly desirable? Because I'm not going to try to sell, give you example, Yamal, you know, auto card 2023, which at average wise, a 2023 Yamal card's going at about $800 card show and on comps wise. And of course, it's going up based on whatever numbers, etc. wise with that. I'm not going to try to sell, card before 11 o'clock on a Friday, for 500, $600. There's a lot more people that are willing to, buy the card at or above comps, that is. But then again, if it's a little kid coming to me, and wants to buy that card, it's after 11 o'clock, and they give me a reasonable offer at comps or below, slightly below, I'll definitely, look at it. I'll definitely consider that, a possible option, that is. But for me to go into those, a show, it's not only about, selling the cards, but also it's what I can find, for myself. That is, like I said before, I'm more of a collector than anything, but also I go to these shows also to meet, people like you, to create that relationships. Why? Because what we do last year, what we do now. We're going to continue that in the next show in June. Even if you go to the show, I'll be there. Even if I don't see you, maybe I want to go up to New York or Connecticut, for a game. I'll be like, hey, are you available? It's creating that
Mhm.
rapport, that relationship. Why? Because it's a lifetime of possible relationships and friendships that you have. And that's the thing. Soccer is a worldwide sport. Um, there's so many different levels, so many different types of relationships, good and bad. Give example, the last big show I did locally, there was this kid that came, wanted Pulisic, bought all my Pulisics. And then it came down to comps wise, you know. And he's like, I really want it, at 70%. I'm like, well, like I really can't do. He's like, but I want to collect it. This is someone I PC. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Not even 2, 3 hours later, I go to Instagram. This kid was selling the car for twice the amount, Did I
Of
feel
course.
bad? Yeah, I felt bad for a couple minutes, But then again, I'm like, it's, I'll remember that kid forever. Will I, give him the comps of 70%? Most likely not for a Pulisic. If there's anyone else, if I'm not connected to that card, I'll consider it. That is, it's also about the heat of the moment. It's about also creating the rapport. Um, but long term wise, I have more positives than negative. Connections with people. I would say that with the relationships I've created in the last 30 years, which give you an example, I remember being that kid in '94, Belgian team came into Washington D.C. and between the first game and second game, they were visiting the embassy, and my dad worked as a caterer. And I remember going to Washington D.C., waiting outside the embassy in the car, seeing if my dad can sneak me into the embassy to meet the soccer players. So I met one or two that were leaving, go onto the bus, that is, which is great, that is. That's stuff you don't forget, and meeting that player, I actually, started collecting his 94 cards, that is, and it's small little things like that. I remember also, well, I'm a DC United fan, they're bad streak last couple of years, that is, but I remember collecting Marco Ichivari cards, that is. I probably am one of the biggest collector of Marco Ichivari cards, believe it or not, because of I collect the PSA. I have a good market for his particular cards. Give you an example, I have his, you know, DC United card, that is, and I have people asking me about about his cards, that is, ever so often. But that's I have a certain amount there PC wise. I even grade it. These particular cards. And there's different variations. A lot of people don't realize. So I have to educate them on the ones that have the gold mark. That is. So it's small little things. Knowledge is key, but then again, the relationships that you actually have over the period of time, it's like gold. I rather be the type of person I go to a show, make a decent amount of money, but the relationships mean more to me. The actual time that we spend, in the show, out of the show. I know when we had the last show, we had a little eating before the first day. We had
Yeah.
a little bit of Portuguese food. Those are stuff that sticks with me. Um, but more than anything, it's about understanding that and this is going to be a challenge for me because I know that last show we had the 1 day show. Now I have to figure out on the balance when I have in my case how to make it last for that second day, that is, or is it something that's going to be sitting a while, then between the first day of the show, I would have to push a little bit, maybe bring out the better stuff, in the actual trade night. So it's about a balance when everything's said and done, but also get an idea on, you know, um, who's coming around, the tables, that is. Because I'm also the type of person, if I don't have many sales the first few hours, I'm going to switch out what's in my case. I'm going to go into my big back case, my suitcase. I'm gonna switch up my cards. I'm gonna freshen it up, see if anyone, it's making their, roundabouts the first time, are coming back in. They might see a card that they like. They're like, hey, I didn't see that card before. I'm like, yeah, are you interested? It's that conversation piece,
Sure.
when everything's said and done. So
Yeah, no, that you brought up a good point too. So not only is this show going on next weekend for everybody that's listening, again, I'll remind you guys, it's Friday, um, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then there's a trade night following it at the hotel. It's in Parsippany, New Jersey, at the Police Athletic League on Baldwin Road. And then you have the second day of the show is on Saturday, um, 9 a.m. to 4, I think, right? Or is it 10? It's 9 to 4. But then in June, we're
yeah,
doing a a World Cup 2026 edition show, 2 day show again. This one's going to be at the Portuguese social club that is in Elizabeth, New Jersey. It's about 3 minutes away from the airport. Free parking, free admission. 2 day show again. That's Saturday, June 20th and Sunday, June 21st. Both days are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The trade night that night is going to be on Saturday, the 20th at 8:30 p.m. That show is going to be, I think we're setting something up for like World Cup viewing too during is actually wait a second. Is the World Cup happening then? It might be actually. I'm trying to remember. I
Yeah,
think we're setting. I think
yeah.
we're setting up. I think we're going to be setting up some type of screen, or it's the Portuguese Club, so they have a bunch of TVs there. So that'll be available to watch now. Um, like I said, I have an announcement for that giveaway we're doing at the show, and this is something that's going to really kind of benefit the vendors, I think, and kind of push the collecting piece of it. In the past, Palu has randomized those giveaways for those packs. I came up with an idea and I kind of shot it to Anthony at Sack Cards and Paulo. I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we create kind of a scavenger hunt at the show over the 2 days? And what it entails is the collecting, and it could be anybody. So if you're listening to the show, you're getting a head start on this. Um, but you have to do it at the show. You can't just bring the cards with you. Um, So what we're proposing is people go out and find the FIFA 11 from last season. So what I mean by that is you got to find the FIFA 11, which included Vitinha, Nuno Mendes, Donnarumma. I think Lamine Yamal was one. Jude Bellingham was one. I think Mbappe was on that list too. I can't remember, but we'll have the 11 kind of. I'm going to do an Instagram announcement on it relatively soon. And what people have to do is they actually have to collect and buy those cards from the vendors. They have to buy base cards of those players. So, how that impacts vendors and kind of setting up at the show is that it helps you guys obviously sell more of the base. And if there's more people chasing that 11, um, then you'll do a lot better. You know what I mean? There's more value to those cards at that point. Uh, Now, not everybody's going to abide by that, and they might still put stuff in the dollar bin or the $2 bin, um, which is fine. Which is fine, but it gives the vendors an opportunity to be like, "Hey, this is part of the contest. There's a premium on these cards now. I mean, you don't have to do that. If people come to my table, I'll say, they're a dollar or whatever, the base cards. But we want people to collect all 11. Now we have to, they have to get the 11. So first five I think that get it are basically the ones that go into the pot for the giveaway for those packs. So the first one, I think Paulo will decide how he does that kind of at the end. Maybe the first person
Mhm.
gets to pick which pack they want, or maybe it'll just be you get the Messi rookie pack. The second place will be the Ronaldo rookie pack. The third place is probably the Mbappe one. The fourth one's probably the Holland rookie pack that you can possibly pull those out of. So, my goal there when I told Paulo about this was to it's a way to engage people to have people actually hunt down these base cards because I know that vendors don't always bring their base cards with them. But this will basically
No.
give you guys a reason to bring some base cards and have those at a table. Now we'll probably do something where and I kind of haven't really done the rules yet, but I think we want to do it. We don't want like one vendor having all 11 players, or no, they can, but we want people to have to buy cards from different vendors. So I have to work on kind of the rules on that. If it's going to be some type of top loader that's sealed, and if the seal is broken, you're disqualified because people could just insert a base card that they have in their collection. Um, and whatnot, and we want to probably keep it only to the attendees. No vendors can be in it. You guys have enough to kind of do already during the day, and this gives you the ability to sell some base cards to a multitude of people. Because I imagine that you might, I want to think there's going to be at least 30 people chasing that, like those 11. But maybe ultimately there'll only probably be 10 to 15 people actually trying to do it. We just got to market it correctly. Um, and we're going to do that this week, hopefully, and through next week. But that's the idea. I still have to, again, like I said, I have to think about how do we, you know, qualify those rules, and it could be just some type of vendor notation on a card or a stamp on a card, kind of like a buyback or something like that. Um, but I'll work on that. I'll figure that out. But I think for vendors, I think it gives you guys an opportunity to kind of even. I know I bring base with me all the time because there are people, especially in New Jersey, right? You have the very diverse community. You know, you might have some Colombia collectors, Ecuador collectors, Portuguese collectors, obviously. So you bring the Porto, the Benfica, the Sporting cards. People want that stuff. So I think it gives people a chance to, number one, have a little fun, but it makes people want to visit all these tables and try to find these cards. Um, it might be, as I'm thinking this through now, is like it's kind of like, well, you can only get 2 cards from each vendor for that. You have to, if you find a Mendez and a Vitinha at one table, you gotta go to another table to get the other 2. That's a max, so we gotta kinda figure out those rules, and I'll work that out with Paulo, but I think it's a better way to do it versus, um, randomizing, I think. This becomes more of a,
Yeah,
it's like a chase, we all like to chase, you know what I mean? So, I hope you guys kind of like that incentive. I think it'll be fun, for people to do that. And yeah, again, like I said, I'm going to figure out the way the rules, how the rules are going to work, and the vendors that participate in it. It certainly will help vendors. Maybe not monetary a lot, but you can probably then charge $3 to $4 or $5 for a base card because there is that premium attached to it. You know what I mean? And then you think about, like, how many people are gonna have Donnarumma base cards at the show? You know? How hard is
yeah.
it gonna be to find how hard is it gonna be to find those?
No,
What do you think? What do you think
extremely,
about that idea? What do you think about
extremely.
this idea? What do you think about this idea?
I I think it's a good idea. I really think it's a good idea. Now, I mean, really, it's for you to make a decision if it's going to be both days or if it'll just be like a set. I think Saturday, it's going to be one of those heavy days. You're going to get a good amount of people coming in and out. That is, um, I don't know how it is with a Friday. I know that, and that's a funny thing. I know that earlier today at work wise. I was trying to sign people to do some work on Friday, and they're like, that's Easter weekend, that is. I'm like, yeah, I'll be in New Jersey. I'm not working, I'll be there I'll be Friday, Saturday out of work, but yeah, I mean, it definitely is a great idea, and at least, it'll bring, much more of a excitement to it. It's not going to be where you're going to have, kids asking each vendor, do you have this card or this and that? You're definitely gonna have to be like, you gotta look at, in these sections, for those base cards. So yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting to be honest with you. It
Yeah, it's
really
it's a
does,
new kind of idea. I don't think anybody's done that before. I just thought of it. I was like, you know what? Let's do the randomization. I know Paulo was kind of, he wasn't frustrated, but the guy that won the last one, he was actually in England and wasn't even at the show. And that was one of the things we didn't want to give away something that for somebody that wasn't attending the show. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I think this is a better way to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. Um, Now let's talk a little bit about what you're collecting right now. Are you collecting any rookies? Are you chasing any rookies right now? Anything we need to know? Anything you're hiding from us?
um Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm looking at, believe it or not, some of the New York Red Bull players. That is, I know a couple weeks ago I was looking at Julian Hall. That is, and I know that it was a. You probably I put something up on Instagram on, uh, and this is the top 15, prospects. That is, and one of them is a that player Julian Hall out of the Red Bulls. He actually has dual citizenship, not only for the United States but also I believe it is for European country. I can't remember off the top of my head that is, but to see exciting how some of these professional MLS players are getting their starts from semi-pro moving up to pro. Give you an example like Michael Bradley. we know he was captain of the United States soccer team for quite a while. He actually ran the Red Bulls two team last year, moved up to Red Bulls MLS team. So he's brought some of those players up, which is fantastic. Great that is. I'm also looking at a couple of the Americans out of Dortmund. A couple of the Bayern Munich players, American wise. I like to base more towards the American players, just to see prospect wise. I know people already been starting to collect the Cave and Sullivan, etc. Wise, that's already at a premium. Um, but give you an example, even players that were really hot the past couple of months and they've actually cooled down. Gwenda, um,
Yep.
great. That's one player that I'm still have hopes for. I still collect his 99 out of 125, 199. That is why, because he's a player that you can definitely see. He's got his own style, his swagger, but it's not always about him. He's also part of the team, and still young. That is from what I've seen so far. But also I like to look at South American players. I always watch or look at videos from Copa Libertadores in South America to see how some of those players are doing, etc. Wise. Like you said before, the that Portuguese player that is playing in the Mexican league.
Yep.
It's amazing. At how that works. And to see that, I for me, I work off of more on nostalgia, that is. And I know that a lot of people have, built relationships they've actually built on nostalgia, that is, which a lot of them have, had kids, they're starting to collect themselves, that is, which is fantastic. Not only soccer, they do other sports, that is, but also it's that prospecting, but also that hope that those players that you're collecting, do have a long term, future. Even if it's not, staying as a player. Give example, I like to call it the Beckham effect, which David Beckham, you know, great player at all, has ups and downs, can be, personally, a little off the edges at times, but when he actually came into MLS, of course, the contracts, the actual excitement he brought into it. Now where he's at with Inter Milan, or Inter Miami, that is. Pardon me on that. Um, and seeing how he has that ownership, that is, and how he's actually bringing that Miami, I call it Miami fusion, that excitement. But not only in the states, but also uh, seeing how that also is affecting other players who are actually still active, but they're buying clubs, or finding
Have
investments. That is.
have you done shows down in the South at all in Florida?
I'm dying to do a show in Florida. That is,
Yeah, I'm
I am dying
curious.
to do
I
a
mean,
show, but
I bet you there's a lot of people that have done shows down there, and I'm curious to know what that Beckham market is like down there. I have the feeling that it's I never hear about it, but I'm actually wondering what that Beckham market's like down there. It's probably got to be pretty popular. I would assume. I could be wrong, but I would assume that Beckham autos and Beckham cards do really well down there. But I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody doesn't know that the answer to that question. I don't particularly know. I don't know if you've heard anything, but I have no clue on that.
well, yeah. I mean, I went 2024 to the National, and I picked up this Beckham card. It was like out of 10. It was with and it's had him in his away jersey, the white Man United jersey with the black shoulders. That is, and I had that for a good while on my PC. That is, and it definitely held its value for quite a while. I actually sold it for a profit, a couple $100 more than I bought it for. But the thing is that just seeing how he was a dynamic player. When there's times that came up for he had to score, he did. But to see how he's actually soccer is continuously part of him, but also he had to put a full commitment on, and money talks at the end of the day. But his
Yeah.
contract allowed him to actually get to where he's at, and from whatever I hear, it's $1 billion, club that is, which I didn't really know that there would be a $1 billion club, in the United States, but then again, I see, other, you know, players that are actually, probably get to that point. Like I would suspect Messi getting to that point. I already know he owns clubs in Argentina. I can only imagine with Ronaldo, going into investing on those. So it's a world of seeing how things are now, but also for me, I'm already looking at projections 12 to 16 years from now to see on where those players are going to be, down the line. That is where, I'm already collecting those players here and there, not even the expensive cards. It's just the cards that have um, they're not as common that everyone's holding that is. So I mean, I know a lot of people are trying to like collect the 2004 cards of Messi. That is, it's astronomical the pricing with that. I actually do have a couple of hobby boxes of that, which believe it or not, I picked them up in DC at a yard sale about
Wow.
18 years ago. So it's one of the things that, you know, a lot of people are
That's
like, why don't
amazing.
you open it up? So I mean, those things were, it was a couple of $1,000s, but to see how some of those, boxes are today, it's astronomical that is, and like I said before, some of the cards I do have, and I've been collecting for 30 years, I consider them to be art wise, and I actually do make sure that I insure, my cards under, my insurance that is. And a lot of people don't really think about that, you know. But also, that's something I'm considering looking at getting insurance for some of these hobby boxes, which, and, I thought about collecting them, but they've become where it's been collecting to now more of an investment that is.
Yeah.
Now, how long that investment will stay, well, I think that, with those, Muni Chromo, 2003, 2004, some of the packs they have early Ronaldos, but then again, a lot of people can't touch those cards. So at least for
No.
me, I'm collecting, more of those refractors, if I can find them from those early years, which a lot of people really, they don't think about, collecting that, and they're really, inexpensive. When I say inexpensive, you're looking at $10 to $15. But if they sit, you have them saved, nicely and neatly, it's and you wait 12 to 15, 16 years from now, and let's say they have owners. Let's say that you have um, some of their videos coming out, at the stadium, that's stuff that sticks. So when people come back to their house, they're gonna be like, hey, I remember that. I need to remember, how to get that card, when that game took place, that moment that is. So I mean, it's forever for me. I don't see myself ever stopping to collect, have PC, but then again, it's about enjoying for me, the next 3 to 4 months. If I can find a way to catch a game, when they have the June show, up in Jersey, I might stay a couple of days before, or I might stay a couple of days after extra to see if I can catch a game. But really, it's about availability, if I can get the ticket or not. So
Yeah. And that's one thing I think we don't. I mean, I know I don't have patience. You certainly do. I can tell.
yeah,
Um, this hobby is just an impatient hobby. And I think with me in the last year, year and a half or so, I've kind of learned patience. What I mean by that is kind of holding a lot of stuff and just keeping some of it, and some of it you let go, right? I mean, I sold my Nev's Gold Auto, and the PSA 9 with the 10 auto. I sold a Nev's Gold PSA 10. I sold a Nev's PSA 10 Gold Wave as well. I got good money for those cards. I was kind of happy because you know what? I have that immaculate 10-10. You know what I mean, in the Benfica kit. And I was very happy about that. I was kind of like, you know what? I don't really need these. This is kind of the ultimate piece for me. Would I still like to have those? Yeah, if I ever find a good price, I'll buy I could probably buy those back at some point, you
Yeah.
know, um, if I really want them. I have 2 peacocks of his, um, the autos. I have one of his,
Yeah.
and one of them's a PSA 10, and then I have his peacock, uh, the regular one, the non-auto. It's a Pup 1
Hmm.
in a PSA 10, that sadly I'm selling it to a guy that's chasing the rainbow for the Nev Select because I said, you know what, he's chasing the rainbow. I'm not chasing it. I'm going to help him out, and I'm going to do that. So at some point we have to understand that being greedy is not the way to go. Sometimes if you can
Yeah.
help somebody and they're doing something that they're trying, like for example, this gentleman's in Asia and he's trying to collect the rainbow. He's shown me all of it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to help you out. I think it's important. Again, it's kind of like me. I have that immaculate 10 of 10 game worn patch with the 3 stars and the auto. I think I'm good. I think I have the car that I want. So it
Yeah.
becomes kind of
Yeah.
and then there's certain other cards like the Stadium Club. Like I love the Stadium Club, the image. So even a base card, I like the base card, and that's one I'm probably going to try to chase that rainbow eventually. But the Stadium Club stuff is kind of dried up. It's really weird. Um, you don't see it. They didn't release it last year. Um, and it's a set that a lot of people like, but the market probably and Fanatics probably knows better than we do in terms of how much the market really likes that product. Maybe the market does not like that product, whereas like Museum, Topps Museum, I can appreciate that set. Do I love it? No. Certain cards I probably do like, but again, it goes back to the on card stuff. We like on card autos, and Upper Deck does a really good job with that with their hockey product, and it's unfortunate that it's taken it hasn't taken Fanatics this long, but that they're still in Panini too, that they're still releasing stuff with sticker autos. And I get it. It's very difficult to get all these people to sign, on card autos. It's an international sport, so it's difficult, but there's got to be a better way. I keep saying, Fanatics, just hire me. I'll go get all the Portuguese signatures you need in Portugal. Just fly me over there. Pay me, I don't know, $3,000 for the month, and I'll do it. You know what I mean? And I'll stay with my parents, and I'll work. Um, but that's kind of one of the things I think we're evolving. The hobby, our soccer hobby is evolving to we want on card autos. But if we can't get on card autos, we got to settle for what's available out there. Tops has done some stuff. The PSG exhibitions that they got that Nevs. I got that 3 color patch. It's of 50. I could have bought the of 10, but I like that one better because there's 3 colors on that patch. Game worn. Like what's not to like about it? It doesn't. It's not always coming down to the lowest number card. Sometimes it has to do with the visual eye appeal of the card. And of 10 nevs of that card is 1 color. And I'm kind of like, this is kind of boring. I want the 3 colors on it. Um, Again, like Upper Deck, they had some exquisite stuff in it in Goodwin Champions last year. I think Lamine Yamal's actually got an exquisite auto in that product. Yes, it's unlicensed, but you look at those sketch cards that the artists have done for the tops. Some of them look weird, some of them look good. um, but if you notice on those cards, those players, you never see their club crest. So for me, I'm looking at those and I'm saying, well, these are kind of unlicensed too because there's no you don't see the club crest on the card. So why are these so elevated as compared to like a beautiful, exquisite on card auto. Like I have the Nevs one. Actually, it's a PSA, but it's an assembly right now. So I'm hoping I get this stuff back before the show because I would love to bring them
Yeah.
down to even just to show them. Like I sent that in. I sent in the 2 Peacock autos for Nevs, and I sent in 2 Rodrigo Mora stickers, rookie stickers, but they're autos. So they're on card autos that I had a friend of mine in Portugal get for me while they were and he I got them while I was in Portugal. I picked them up with my parents over the holidays. So, I mean, if they come back 10 tens, I would love. I know all the Porto fans, but I'm gonna keep one. But one, I'll be willing to sell one of them at the show, if I get them back in time. But um, the on card stuff is interesting because for the longest time collectors didn't care. Now they care all of a sudden. So it's kind of like it's kind of like the old sticker thing. The people are always true rookie, and I'm always like, only when it fits your narrative. It's actually what you're calling it. It's kind of
Yeah,
like
sure.
Victor Osimhen had that rookie sticker in the Lille kit in France, and people are like, "This is a rookie." No, it's his rookie. His rookie's actually in FIFA 365 in his Nigeria kit in 2016. And it's kind of like, listen, these are stickers. They're not
Yeah.
cards. They're different. The sticker market's very different. I love stickers too, and I appreciate them. That's kind of what got me into soccer collecting as it was, but there's totally separate markets, and I get the fascination. Like for me, Ronaldo's some I've been asked before, would you rather have the Mega Cracks card or the sticker? I think I'd want the sticker actually. The sticker is really
Hmm.
cool. They're both, you know, they're limited because they only released in Portugal. They didn't release anywhere else. That's what people don't realize. They think, oh, they're not numbered. No, they're not numbered. They only released them in Portugal. This is why the Portuguese set that came out recently, I was there for the holidays, and you know, the packs were 99 cents in euros. So they're a dollar for a pack. I bought like 8 packs.
Hmm.
I wish I'd bought more. But it's like that was so much fun, and they were pretty nice. I'm actually gonna bring some of them to the show. I gotta actually give a card to somebody I know there too. Um, but they were really nice, and it was kind of I start to wonder now. I'm like, what's gonna happen? Like the Porto kid in there, Fruholt, he's gonna transfer, and he's gonna get big. It's gonna be a big money transfer. He's a very good player,
Hmm.
outstanding Danish player, um, a star. He's gonna be one of the best midfielders in the world, and his rookie is in that product. And what if he becomes a real big time player? I mean, that card, regardless, is going to do really well. So you have to wonder on certain wax, like you bought that wax with the Messi rookie. Is this Portuguese league wax something to consider buying for the future? Probably is. Um, given the price point, I haven't looked on eBay to see what those go for, but there's always opportunities that I think it's kind of like I've been talking a lot on my paid podcast about stained glass versus Renaissance and the differences. And I'm going to come up with some data for everybody. Um, I'm not going to dive too deep into for people that haven't paid for the podcast to hear what I did a lot of research, and it's so it's kind of wild. We're in this hobby, and it's kind of like the Wild West, because people want to, and usually the issue is people are buying what other people buy. They're not buying ahead of time. Um, Mateos Fernandez is a guy I've been watching for a little bit. I bought his 5 of 5. What is that? What's that? Is it not Inception? What's the other product from Panini with an eye? There's Immaculate, and there's another one. I'll
I'm
pull it
trying to
up right
think
now.
myself.
I'll pull it up right now. This is so bad that I can't even remember the card that I have, and I don't have the cards in front of me, so I can't even look at it. Yeah, I'll have to look at my Instagram here, but it's I bought his 5 of 5. I think I paid $50 for that card, and I think because I was early, I bought so early. Um, but his cards now are they're going bananas because he's going to transfer for 80 to 100 million, especially if West Ham drops. If they get relegated, forget it. They're gone. Um, Oh, it's impeccable. I bought his 5 of 5 impeccable. I paid $50 for the card.
Okay.
5 of 5. I think is of 25 sold for recently for $200. So, it's kind of like, I'll probably bring it to the show. I'll put it out. It's going to be not at a good price, but it's going to be at a price what the market says it is. You know what I mean? So he's a Portuguese player too, but sometimes it's kind of like, there's stuff I buy stuff. I'm kind of like, God, I shouldn't sell this. I should keep it and hold it. And then it's like, how do you battle that demon yourself from like putting something in your showcase? I know for me, like I like to put my Nev stuff so people can look at it because they think it's cool. Um, how do you restrain yourself for even those boxes you have? Like I give you a lot of credit. I could definitely not keep those in my house, and not open them. I would definitely open those. I used to buy like I used to buy like a lot of hockey wax and put it away. because of the young guns. And if I just never opened them, I'd be better off. And guess what? I didn't keep them. I opened them all. I opened them all because it was fun. And this is why I don't do breaks anymore because of it's too much of a gamble. And you're doing such a good job by not opening that stuff that kind of like how do you restrain yourself from that? Because I know you're looking at it. You said it before. You're looking at it as an investment now, not a not it's not really a hobby or a collection piece. I guess it is a collection piece, but it's a collectible. That's when it becomes a collectible. Because I think we have a hard time defining what a collectible is. I think we have too many. Part of it is there's a lot of voices in this hobby now that are comparing this to the stock market. It's nothing like it. I get some of the comparisons, but this is not the stock market. Let's face it. There's no regulation in it. Um, that's probably coming. People are gonna wish they never. And I'm gonna say it now because I haven't really spoken about it. But there was this whole whatnot situation. People are gonna regret that they even did that. This is gonna bring regulation of the hobby in ways that people have never going to imagine. That's not going to be good for the hobby. Um, but you know, how do you restrain yourself from opening those boxes? I know if those boxes were in front of me right now, if you came over and said, "Hey, can you hold these boxes for me because I can't help myself from opening them," I'd probably open them too. This would be a bad place to leave those boxes. But how do you restrain yourself?
Biggest way to restrain myself is lock them up. For me, I know that I would say about 5, 6 years ago, I would have them in containers in my basement. Um, then just to look at how those pricings have, give example with when Messi got that World Cup, those moments, him wearing that, the robe, etc. Wise, you know, I was like probably a day or two after that, and just seeing how that market just went straight back up. I was like, I have to make change on this. Why? Because this guy, what he's done, what he's doing, what he will do, it's not for me to make a decision on putting this out. It's in that category of not for sale. So I got all those boxes, put them in my new safe, put a combination in there, know that combination, but guess what? My wife is like, that's for life. She changed that combination, so it's out of my control. It's in the safe. I don't have access to it, you know, until I really need to have access to it, which is for sale purpose wise. Of course, I do have a couple of cards that are not for sale, but they're in my case. Um, I do at times put them out on my Instagram. Give you example, like the Alexis Sanchez I have here. I got this probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I paid a little premium for PSA, for having a grade, etc. I think it was regular service was about 35 days, and it was give or take pretty accurate with that business days. Um, it doesn't sell too much in the market wise, but also what I realize as well is there's not too many Alexei Sanchez 101s, in the actual
Mm,
market itself. But then again, all you need is one person that actually is a collector that actually wants that card. So I remember putting that up, I actually put it up when it was non-graded. I put it up when it was graded, and I can't even tell you, at least a handful of people, asked me, is this available, this and that. I said, for the right price it is, but, really, this is new to me. I want to be able to see if I connect with the card or not. That is, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, I of course put a price to it, which is a little absorbent at $850. Um, but then again, it's something that, for the right price, if someone comes to me, I'll put it in the showcase. But I'll put it as, a not for sale. I'll change out that price and see if someone offers something, within my liking when everything's said and done. Because that's the thing. When it's a one-on-one, you can pretty much price it for what you want. They can go for comps wise, et cetera wise with that. But more than anything, I have four categories. I have the not for sale, which is safe wise. Don't even touch it. Don't even have the combination. Not for sale. I have it in my case. That is, but for the right price, I'll sell. I have cards that I'm switching out for my PC to be out, which those particular cards, they might hold value, they may not. But actually, for me, give you an example like this Roberto Carlos. You know, I've had it for
Mm.
approximately about 2 years. That is, um, it's not an expensive card, but for me, it's 96, 97. For me, I'm a Real Madrid fan, that is, so I can remember these crazy kicks he had done. I remember the history. I remember the championships, back then. So for me, it's that connection, but there's only so much I can really hold on to a card, that is, because I need to really move on what's more a priority, just trying to see what's the next best thing when it gets out of my PC, that is.
Do you
Then, yeah.
do you do you do you price your cards at the show? Do you put them in the case with prices on them?
Yes, I would say 95% of them I do put a price on it. Um, the reason I do that is for transparency purpose wise, but it is a pain about to do so. Why? Because I want to make sure I try to get pricing um, as close as possible from a week from when I actually have it out in the case, that is. So it definitely does take, a few hours to actually, do a comparable comp on that. But also prices, are not, set in stone and everything said and
Okay.
done.
Do you find it
I
do you find it that it's
so
do you find it more helpful for the people that are coming to your table when there's prices on there where people engage more so with you if there's prices, or do people shy away more from people that don't have pricing on their cards?
um I would say that I get a lot more traction when I have prices on my cards, just because it saves a question. How much is this, or what's your lowest? You know, if the question does come up off the bat, what's your lowest? I definitively, go back and ask them, this is the price. I could probably go, if it's a card that's over 100, $200, let's say 200. I told them, if you're asking for my best price, it's 200. I could probably take $5 off. How's that sound? So I
Mm,
throw it back at them, when everything's said and done, because I already one, I gave them what price I want. Number two, I gave them my best price. So it leaves them for to either ask another question, third, or to tell me what they're looking for in regards to pricing wise. So from
okay.
then, I really look at how much I actually connect with a card, and if it's something that they, I'll give you an example. If it's 200, I gave them 190, 195, and they say, I want to get it for 150. So I'm thinking, I would really think, if I really have that connection, if I'm still connected with that card, I'll go look at, pricing wise, recent pricing with it. If I'm not connected
Okay.
to that card, I'm just going to move it. Why? Because, I have to go with whatever's the next thing, if it's a card or if it's about, a great meal I'm going to eat that, have that evening, that is, or, if it's something that I'd rather have, liquid, which, cash, money flow. I'm a big believer, cash is king. Also, I do, of course, on the side also, and sack cards, makes me laugh about it, is Siberia with like more of silver coins. Like there was a 94% that came in. Um, Probably that would be the only non-soccer card trade I would do for a soccer card, that is, in the
Okay.
upcoming shows, that is. So, I mean, small little things like that. But then again, I'm not always about that money hustle. I'm about I like to have things that no one else has, or don't really think about. That is, give example like um, mall die cuts. Um, I was chasing them for quite a while. I had about 3 to 4 die cuts 2023 from UEFA, uh, Euro, that is.
Mm,
Sold them little by little because I realized, I want to get one that's graded. I could grade one, that is, but for my experience, die cuts grading with PSA, I don't have the best luck, that is. So luckily,
Yeah.
I did have someone that actually did provide me, or came to my table and gave me a price. So I was like, it was the end of the show. I was like, I don't want to buy this right now, but I want to keep that relationship with you. A couple weeks
Yeah.
later, I bought it, and it's one of the things that um, I'm a most case I'm an open book, when it comes down to the shows. I'll tell you when I'm asking for it and all that, but once I see that you are not being honest with me, that's something that I won't forget. I mean, I'll learn to forgive, especially when you're trying to make money off of me, but you're being dishonest. That's one of my pet peeve, having someone get, over me at the end of the day, that is. Especially with a
Yeah,
hobby that,
that's
it's so pure, at the end of the day. So pure.
yeah, it is. But as we know that, when money starts coming in, things change quite a bit. And it's a good thing for most of us, right? It's just, it's kind of like you got to make the decision as to who I mean, I do it all the time. I won't sell to certain people because it's just, I'm not selling it, and sometimes people get mad about it. It's kind of like, well, I'm just not going to sell it to you. Um, but
That's true.
We're come up here on almost an hour and a half, man. I guess we could talk all night
Wow.
about cards, but I know it's getting late. But few questions for you. Who is your
Of
World
course.
Cup win? Who's your World Cup winner prediction? Who do you got winning?
Man, that is a
Or
tough one, that is. Um, I see it that I'll put the best way I can display it like this. I see Portugal going pretty far in. It's could definitely be between um, Portugal and France. And the reason I would say Portugal is because I'm looking back and thinking about a few Euros ago when Cristiano Ronaldo got injured. That is,
that's 10 years
and I
ago.
believe it
10
was the
years
final.
ago.
Correct?
Yep, 10 years
Yeah.
ago against France.
Um,
Yep.
Yep. And you would think, the one or the best player in the world get injured. Portugal is done with it. But you had, I believe, it was Nuno Mendes, I believe, if I'm incorrect, came into the game and scored. And there was
No,
no
that was
or
Eder
no.
that scored. Eder that scored.
Oh, Eder? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. A forward, yeah, I remember. Super fast, got that kick in, and to this day, I still remember stuff like that. But to see how there's been a difference of players, over the past 10 years. But then again, Portugal is always in that picture. But also looking at the teams that they're playing, um, and to get into the certain rounds, which this is interesting. 48 team, two teams that each round, each group qualified for next.
mm,
I guess the round of 32, the 16, all that. So I'll definitely say if it comes down to Portugal and France, that really comes down to who's on that field. That is, Mbappe is a different player. He plays slightly different from what he does national team to what he does Real Madrid. Why so? And thinking about how Mbappe played in Argentina 4 years ago, I would say that France probably has a slight edge to that. That is,
I just think they're a little deeper. Looks like we got disconnected here.
sets because
There
you
we
know
go.
that there's going to be an upset one way or another. Because to give you an example, if Argentina is able to lose in a game in that first three games, but still become a champion, that definitely can rattle that 48 team um, scenario easily. Especially those groups. I mean, for me, I'll give you a quick example. 2 nights from now, Bolivia's playing. That's my team. My dad's Bolivian. They're playing against Suriname. Suriname is, the favorite. For me, blood and heritage, I'm from Bolivia, but also I know that they've switched out their team. Now that's one thing I always do. I'm a big believer on knowledge. Um, and for me, I do a little gambling. I'm gonna go for Bolivia. Will they ever make it out of that, the group? No way they're making it out of that group. And if they win on Thursday, that is. But yeah, I would say overall, France would be the
You
that
you
champion,
you
I think.
you never know. My dad always says the ball is round, so anything can happen. And especially,
Yeah,
going back to 2016 again. It's one of those things. It's like Ronaldo gets hurt in the first half. I'm like, this is
yeah,
over. There's no way. There's no way. And they come back and they do it. And we saw it 4 years ago too. Argentina, France, where Mbappe put France on their back, and one of the greatest individual performances ever at a World Cup game. Not only the final, but a game where I to this day I say Mbappe is the best player in the world at the moment. There's no question to me that he is the best player. If I was starting a team today, I'm taking Mbappe, most likely. That's what I'm doing. As my striker or my I know he operates more on the left. He likes to operate on the left more, but
yep,
he's the guy. You know what I mean? All right, last question for you. So I know Friday night we've got the show all day, and then we've got the trade night. Um, but I'm kind of the feeling that I know Paulo said there's probably a steakhouse nearby that has a, but I actually might drive to Newark and go get dinner at a real Portuguese place that I really liked. So I'm gonna put the invitation out there. If you want to come, you can come. I'm driving down, obviously. And then if anybody else is going to the show on Friday night and they want to do that and cut out, I think what the show is 11 to 6 on Friday. Yeah, it really. I mean, I have to look at the.
yeah.
I have to look at how far Parsippany is from Newark, but um, if I have to be late for trade night, I don't really care. There'll be people will still be there. They'll be there all night. So there's this place that Tuga Breaks put me on. It's called People, and then Paulo told me it's really good too. So I went there after September. I went there for what was it, dinner after our show on that Saturday. I went alone. I was like,
Yeah.
I gotta get something to eat, something good, and I went and got some octopus there, and I absolutely loved it. I crushed it. I just sat there, had a beer, and drank ate my octopus, and really enjoyed it. But it was a good spot. So if we have time, maybe we can figure that out. But um, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, and other vendors as well. Unfortunately, you and I've had one other vendor on the podcast. It doesn't. I don't know if some of these guys are stage fright or what, but like they should come on the pod too. Hopefully, this is a good experience for you. Make sure you guys check out Public Kingdom at the show next weekend. Good guy, good collector. Probably give you good deals too. As long as you don't take advantage of them, obviously. I'll probably come by too this time because I need to see if do you have any more of those Eusebio Prism cards, or are you all out of those?
I have to look at it. If I do, I'll probably have to move them out of my PC, but I'll wait the next day or two to see if I take it out of my PC. I gotta see if my heart's to it or not.
Because I gotta get one. And some guys they just want way too much money. I'm kind of like, oh come on, guys, And I'm not. Listen, I'm not a big advocate for non-playing day cards. I'm not. I think they're kind of garbage. But Eusebio to me is a legend of Portugal, so I kind of float that way. And I think my dad really enjoyed a look at
Okay.
that card. So, I mean, I'm sure I'll find one, but either way, if you end up bringing them, cool. If you don't, then it is what it is. But thank you again for coming on, man. I really appreciate the time that you gave us. Um, and then anybody else that wants to come on, please let me know. Send me a message to all the vendors. I'll send a message again in the group chat and let people know this is open. We have this week. We're basically a week and a half away now. Not way less than 2 weeks. We talked. I saw your post last week. I was like, damn, that's come up quick. Um, but so looking forward to seeing you, man. I appreciate your time on this. I think you gave us a lot of good insight into what I know you helped me because now I'm going to price my stuff and I'm going to try to organize it correctly if I can find the time, obviously, um, before I because I think last time what I did was I brought everything to the hotel. I checked in the hotel that Friday night, and I was like, "Oh, there was a one-day show. I can do the pricing tonight before bed." And then the trade night, and you have a beer or two, and it's like, nah, I'm not gonna price anything, whatever, So, but I appreciate that insight. That certainly helped me. Hopefully, it helped other people. I'm sure it did. Um, Man, see you next week. Safe travels.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on, and I'll definitely see you next week. That is.
All right, take care, man.